Hi, I'm Chef Jonathan Locke, and today we're going to take a quick look at knives and knife safety. In front of me, I've got an array of some of the more commonly used knives in the professional kitchen. This is a paring knife, of course. Real small, real common, real easy to use. This, next door to it, is its larger cousin, a French knife. Notice the curve of the blade. That curve allows it to rock back and forth, which is an important cutting technique. On another continent, this is used for many of the same things that a French knife would be used for in Europe. This is a Chinese cleaver. Next to it is a roast knife. This is used for cutting things like roast beef, and it's also a very handy tool for filleting large flat fish like salmon. And this, of course, is a bread knife. You can see the little serrations in there, the little teeth which help hold it onto the bread and keep it from slipping off. And then this little thing is a knife by courtesy. It's a peeler. Now, in using these critters, there are certain rules that you need to remember. Rules such as you cut with the edge, not with the back. So if your knife is upside down, don't do anything. And you may laugh, but this actually has happened. I have seen people trying to pound on knives to get through bone or something really hard to cut when the knife was upside down, and you can imagine what happened. It really, really does happen, and it's really, really ugly. So just pay a little bit of attention. One of the more important things, though, when you're cutting is the shape of the hand. Let's take a zucchini. A zucchini is a great thing to use as an instructional tool for learning how to hold a knife properly. Take off the top, take off the bottom. Now, zucchinis are round. You notice that? Round is bad when you're cutting things ordinarily, so what you want to do is you want to get a flat surface so that it lays flat and it doesn't rock around when you're trying to cut it. Hold the thing here. Now, I'm holding it on both sides and I'm putting the knife in between. This is the only dangerous time for someone who knows how to use a knife. For someone who doesn't know how to use a knife, the danger runs through the whole cutting time. So we're trying to teach you how to do this properly. Now I have two flat surfaces here. Lay it down. It's no longer going to roll around. The shape of the hand is called the bear claw. Looks like that. The thumb goes back here, acts as sort of a guide. And the hand is bent so that the knuckle actually touches the blade of the knife as it goes up and down. And then the thumb serves as a guide and stabilizer, and then when we get back here, it actually pushes the zucchini forward under the knife. Now, if your hand has fingers sticking out like that instead of curled like this, then these are no longer fingers. They are the necks of sacrificial animals, stretched out, waiting for the axe to fall. You don't want that. Really, 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 you don't want that. What you want is for the blade to touch your forward knuckle and for your hand to move gradually backwards at a steady speed. Now, when you're doing this, it's important to maintain the speed of the hand and the speed of the knife so that you get relatively even sizes of cuts. And as you do this, and note that I say as you do this, not the first time, but as you do this, the speed will increase. So it will go from this to with a certain amount of practice. But don't try to get there all at once because you will carve your knuckles into little tiny flinders, and you don't want that. Maintain the shape of the hand and the speed will come all by itself. So this knife and the Chinese cleaver work precisely the same way. And it's the width of the blade that allows it to work like that. If you had a skinny little blade like that and you were trying to go up and down, there's nothing to ride against the knuckle. So this is not something you would use for chopping because it's going to come down here. It can't get up far enough to cut without coming down onto you. But a French knife and a cleaver both have that same kind of width of blade so that you can control the speed, control the height when you lift, and you don't ever have to get it up so high that it's going to put you in danger. The thing I like about Chinese cleavers is you can also kind of use them as a bench knife to clean your work area and as a spatula to pick stuff up. It's a real multi-purpose tool. It is, this one in particular, this is not stainless. There's a difference in the steels here, and we need to talk about that a little bit before we go any further. A Chinese cleaver in regular use, this one is carbon steel. Some of them are stainless. This is an old-fashioned one. It takes an edge much more easily than stainless steel, and it loses its edge much more easily. So it's easier to sharpen, and it's easier to dull. One of the problems with it, of course, is that much of the stuff you cut is going to be wet. When it's wet, if it goes on carbon steel, it will rust if it's not clean. Stainless permits a certain degree of carelessness, and it will forgive you for it. We do want to keep clean, but if there's a little bit of residual moisture on it, it's not going to rust. With carbon steel, you don't have that luxury. This is the old-fashioned knife. And it's a wonderful, wonderful knife, and I use it all the time, but you do have to be nice to it and take care of it. For other things, you use a paring knife. Now, there are different approaches to using paring knife, and they vary a lot by culture. For instance, this is a common way of using a paring knife in Europe. You cut through and you miss your thumb. You don't go into your thumb, okay? It sort of looks like it from a distance, but you're actually going by it. If you go into your thumb and your knife is short, you will go into your thumb. Not a good thing. Now, if, for instance, you were cutting something into a stew pot, you would be cutting like that. Let's pretend the pot is right down underneath me and I'm doing this. And you notice that I hold it up a little bit. I'm not way down here at the end. I'm up a little bit, so I'm just using a very little bit of the blade and I'm controlling it, and the cut is just a tiny, tiny motion. You can also use paring knives for things like decorating. Let's pretend I've gone all the way around. Then you take the tip of your knife and you go in like that, and then in like that. And all I'm doing is just pressing down with the angle of my knife, and I'm doing it to make a little star. And that's a very easy, very simple garnish that you can just do practically without thinking about it. I'll give you a quick introduction to a peeler, okay? One thing about peeling the carrot. We have a sort of religious rule in kitchens about which end you start with. You always start by peeling the fat end because the carrot gets slick once you've peeled it. Dry here, wet here. And it's a lot easier to hold on to the fat end when you turn it around than it is to hold on to the skinny end. And it's a lot less likely to break. Your peeler should be sharp enough that you don't have to put pressure on it. If you push so hard that you're going to bust your carrot, you have a dull peeler. They only cost 95 cents. Throw it away and get another one. So once you've got it peeled, once again, if you're going to cut it, you do the same way. Cut off the end and then find a flat surface. This is the one dangerous one, okay? It's rolling here. I'm going to get a thinner knife blade so I actually have a way to get over the top of it. So, safety often determines your choice of knives. Now, if you wanted to dice a carrot, dicing is a very different sort of thing. Dice, as the name implies, means you want to wind up with something square. So to do that, because you don't start out with anything square here, you got lots of round surfaces, you have to make your square surface. And so, rather than just being one cut where things can roll, you might think that as you square it off, there are a bunch of them. But each time you cut, you get a flat surface. So you cut one side, lay it down. Cut another side, lay it down. Cut the third side, over it goes, and then we square off the last side. Now, again, it tapers here, and we don't want that. You notice that I'm wasting a lot here? Well, this is the way that it is. The fancier the restaurant, the more food is required to be really, really precise after it's cut, and the more waste you're going to have. This would all go into different stuff. It could become a puree because there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like those are peels anymore. But it can't become a dice because it just doesn't measure up. Now, I have cut these guys into slices that are about, maybe just a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch thick. And so now my next cuts, which are a little more dangerous because I've got them stacked and that can slip, need to be just that far apart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them just too high. And then I'm going to go in here, and that should be just about right. And then you notice the difference between this one and that one. Eh? Two different widths. And the chef come in and he say, I said dice, the same size. Do it again. And throws this out. And so our last cut will go right down here. And I don't need a great big knife for this. So right there. And as we go through, they should all look pretty much cubes on the side. And there we have dice. Now, this guy has a myriad of uses. And the longer I use it, the more I find I'm using it for. I started out thinking of this as just a roast beef knife, where you stand out in the middle of the dining room and you shave down your steamship round of roast beef for the line of people that is 250 people long because it's Mother's Day, and take it with your fork and put it on the plate and then keep at it and keep at it. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I found that this was the preferred salmon knife. There is such a thing as a fillet knife. It's long and bendy. It's got a real thin kind of whippy blade, sharp on one end, flexible so you can kind of go up and down. But salmon is a kind of forgiving fish just because of the bone structure on the inside. So you can take this knife and go right down underneath the gills, turn it sideways, and just go whoosh all the way down to the end of the fish, flip the guy over, do the same thing on the other side. And you take it out and you have two beautiful fillets, and it takes just about that long, and then you pull the needle nose pliers out of your back pocket because there's a whole line of teeny tiny bones down the chest of the salmon called pin bones that are just horrid to get in your food, so you have to pull them out one at a time. But the initial part with this knife looks really cool and goes really fast. And then our final knife of the day is a bread knife. Now, it may seem to you that you know how to cut bread. Okay, you do. But I'm going to do it for you anyway. One thing about bread knives is that the teeth are obvious. And you may not know this, but they're hooked together at the bottom so that the customers can pull them off and they don't fall apart on the way. Okay? All knives have teeth. Every one of these blades has teeth, even though you only see serrations on a couple of them. Okay? Believe me? Well, if you don't, go find somebody with a microscope and look at them. When you're sharpening a knife, what you're doing is you're rearranging the molecular structure of the teeth, basically. Notice how the hand is moving out of the way? I'm just maintaining enough contact to keep the thing stabilized, but my hand is moving back. Serrated knives can give you an amazing cut. Truly, truly amazing. And then the whole thing will open out like this. This is also a really good way to cut garlic bread so that it's just held a little together at the bottom. And then you can paint the insides and you can toast the whole thing at once. When you're carrying, you want to make sure that you're not going to poke anybody and you're not going to cut anybody. And so when you do it, you keep the knife down and you keep the edge parallel to your body. So the edge is not out like that. The edge is not in like this. This is a bad thing too. And it just stays like that, and you can walk around the room without poking or slicing or cutting. Leaving your knife is always a dangerous thing in the kitchen because if you leave it like that, and some knives will stay like that. I don't know that I have one right now. There we go. Some hand is going to go down on it sometime. It's virtually certain that that will happen. You don't leave knives up. You don't put sharp knives in the sink. Another thing to think about is how you wash these things. When you wash them, you want to make sure that it is on a surface that's not going to dull the blade, so like not on a ceramic sink or something like that. And you want to wash it with the edge down. You do not want to put them in the sink beneath opaque bubbles. If they're sitting in the sink and you can't see what's in there and you reach down in there and your hand goes like that, the result is likely to be less than pleasant. So these always get washed by themselves on the side. And in restaurants, the rule is that every cook washes his or her own knives. So those are a couple little rules about knife safety. Sharpening of knives could be a whole video in itself, and that is something that takes a long time to do. The general rules for them, though, are in a knife that's in use all day long, you put it on a sharpening steel every 15 minutes, and I'll show you a sharpening steel in a minute. Every 15 minutes for a knife that's in use all day long. You put it on a stone every 3 to 5 days. You've all seen that in pictures, I'm sure, back and forth across the stone, and you take it to a professional grinder every 6 months or so. There are all kinds of mechanical aids now to sharpening knives so that you can do it fairly successfully at home. There are mechanical sharpeners, little wheels that go around that are electrical. The problem with them is that you need to control the speed and you need to control the angle of the blade going in. The more money that gets spent on them, by and large, the more features and benefits you will get from them, and the safer your knives will be. But take the time, if you want to sharpen your knives yourself, to learn how to do it properly. This is a sharpening steel. It doesn't actually sharpen. What it does is realign the molecules on an already sharp knife so that a prepared cutting edge will turn into a true cutting edge. Now, I'm sure you've seen on television the chefs going like that with it. Don't. Just don't. Put the point down and just go back and forth away from you a few times, and that's all that's necessary. These are magnetic. It actually pulls a little, and that takes any little filings that you have gotten on the outside of your knife from honing it down and pulls them right off the knife. That's the way that you'll see it on television. That's the way you're not going to cut yourself. Almost any chef will tell you that these are the most important tools in the kitchen. And treated properly, they will last you a lifetime. So you take care of them, they will take care of you. Thanks.